So around the time of 2016, 2017, when the Golden State Warriors were on the rise and the NBA was in that transition period from going more of a half-court game to more of the Splash Brothers or the three-point style that we see today. But one thing that really gets talked about that possibly could have knocked off the NBA from transitioning to that style of play was the duo of Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins down in New Orleans. Because as the Warriors were making their run, this duo could have created a lot of matchup problems for the Golden State Warriors. And even though DeMarcus Cousins went down with an injury in 2018, with the Pelicans only being in 6th place, they were still able to sweep Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers in that same postseason. But their roster was constructed in a way that would have caused a lot of matchup issues for the Golden State Warriors, as they were well equipped with point guards, guys like Jrue Holiday that could not only defend the perimeter, but could also hit the big man off with that entry pass in the pick and roll game. And you could also look at the fact that they have Rajon Rondo, another ball handler, to come off the bench and fully supply guys like Cousins and Anthony Davis with assists. But DeMarcus Cousins had did a sit down where he talked about making peace with no longer being part of the game. Yes, there is politics at play with him still not being in the league. We do understand that he's gone through many injuries, but when you look at his career ending as far as being in the NBA, a lot of the teams that kept picking him up were competing for a championship. Teams like the Houston Rockets, the Clippers, the Bucks, and eventually the Nuggets. So there is a musical chairs game being played in which they kept them to a very low vet minimum, which is a play that could turn out to have high impact. But the vet minimums do serve as a double-edged sword for some of the vets that are trying to stay in the league, as teams have to give them a minimum of $3 million or more. But as the NBA gets more and more talent, especially on a global scale, we're going to see more and more vets kind of erode from these NBA rosters, as we're already seeing it play out today. But Cousins has spoken on quite a few things reflecting on his career. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Have you came to terms or like found peace of where your career is now? Because I know the injuries suck, right? And that's always the what ifs. You had the Achilles injuries. Like, what if that never happened? Where your career would have been, you know what I mean? Because that, just you being out alone, you lose timing, you lose rhythm, you lose a little confidence. Like, being able to do shit you used to be able to do when you were younger. Like, did you come to grips with yourself, with your family, or where you was in your career? Because I struggle with that. Like, I do shit sometimes like, damn, man, I used to be able to do this, that. Like, now I got to reinvent myself, like time after again.
Did I ever come to grips with it? I guess you could say yes and no. I never accept the fact that the label is that I can't play the game anymore. Like, as a competitor, as driven as I've been in this game since I've stepped foot in it, like the blood, sweat, and tears I put behind this shit, I never accept that. Like, and I could be completely fucking wrong. Yeah. And that's cool too. But I'll never accept that because I know what I can do when I get on the floor. Right. But I had to come to a peace with it when it came to my family and my situation at home. And honestly, when it comes to answering that question, did I move on from it? In a way, I did. I never accept the excuses and the narrative that comes with it. But as far as moving on with my life, bro, absolutely. And I'm happy as fuck about it. Like, you know what I mean?
You got your show with Rachel Nichols, the Bully Ball. Mm-hmm. Talk to us now. Like, did you always envision yourself being a part of the media and doing the podcasting and this media space?
No, P. Hell no. I never imagined it at all. And I'm going to say it kind of stemmed from, I would say, like a trauma aspect. Like, you know, being in this career, being in this league and shit, you don't get to really control your narrative. You know what I mean? Like, in a way, you could say this shit is like scripted and all that. And what I mean by scripted is like, shit, you might be the bad guy of this movie. You know what I mean? Right. And I know you can testify to that because it's been a time where P was at the top of the mountaintop, and then it was days where they shitted on this guy like he was the worst player in the league. Right.
But some of the media members, they kind of Peter Pan some of these guys, which is something that I really don't like. When they first come into the league, yeah, they're younger, but they kind of do the same thing that they do to Chris Brown, where a mistake he might have made when he was a lot younger, when he was a young adult, 20, preteen, age 19, 18, they still hold over their head as if they can't grow once they start hitting to their 30s and 40s. It doesn't make any sense. But a beautiful result from it is the media landscape now in which players are more comfortable speaking to other players, and they have a platform to get their narratives out. Like I said, we're in a very, very unique circumstance, and a lot of good is going to come out of this.
And that's what I mean by controlling the narrative. Like, this motherfucker has been cold since he stepped foot in this motherfucker. You know what I mean? So it doesn't even make, the guy just said he is a 9-time All-Star, like first ballot Hall of Fame, all of these things, but still and all that, they're going to find a way to make you the bad guy at times, and then you're the savior at other times. So,
Yep, you could see it kind of play out the way his career ended. Once again, he was tied to most of these teams that were competing for a championship. He went to the Golden State Warriors in 2018, then to the Houston Rockets, then to the Clippers, then to the Bucks. And of course, his last dance was in Denver. All these teams were competing. So the narrative kind of benefited these teams because they had a player that could possibly help them get over that hump in case injury or something kind of happens. They had a polished vet on their bench. But in order to make sure that his price stays low, they need to make sure that the narrative about him kind of stays alive a little bit. It's like a game these GMs play to keep guys' prices low. And we see the same thing play out for guys who were once Supermax players and then they accept a buyout and then they make the mistake of joining another team for a minimum. And we never see them get back to at least a mid-level contract. I believe Derrick Rose is the only player that actually did this. He went from a Supermax to a minimum to a mid-level contract. But this should have played out for a lot more players than we think. And we tend to see players only hit from Supermax to now that they're minimum guys no matter what. And this is where the NBA politics come into play, which is a tone that's set by the numerous GMs around the league. They can keep guys' prices around a certain range.
For me, I never fucked with that shit. Like, cause me coming in, like, my whole mindset is I want to come in, do my job, be myself, and just dominate. Like, I want to dominate and win games. And I have to be myself in order to do that.
Right.
So the fact that I feel like I can never really be myself, and on top of being myself, it then became where I was demonized for it. Like, I ain't fuck with that shit. So, you know, it also came with the, you know, how my career played out towards the end. And I would just hear these different things of why I'm not in the NBA and outside of me just being injured. Nigga got hurt. Nigga, that's how this shit go. But it was so many narratives like I'm a cancer in the locker room. I'm this. I'm a distract. And it's just like, God.
Once again, that's the media playing those games. And unfortunate for the brothers out there, man, because the media, they tend to pigeonhole guys to shit that they used to do when they were 18, 19 years old. These guys like Cousins right now, he's 33. They're still going to hold him to that same standard that they saw him when he first came into the league. And this is where that saying goes. The people that you shit on your way up, you're going to have to see them on your way down.
Damn, like, how a motherfucker get 12 years and he all of these things? You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers don't make it that long in this league if they any of that. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like I got to a point where, and also just coming in this league, when I came in, it was a shut up and dribble league. Like, we don't want to hear what the fuck y'all got to say. You gonna hear what the fuck I got to say, bro. And that's one of the things that did bite me in the ass being in the air. So now I'm at the point where if there is a narrative, I want to be able to create it myself. I want y'all to know who I am strictly from the horse's mouth. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna be able to get it misconstrued or confused because you heard it here first. This is who I am. You know what I'm saying? Can't nobody else tell you who I am because I'm gonna tell you who I am. You know what I mean? So it's finally and early on, I wasn't a motherfucker that liked to talk. Like, if I'm comfortable with you and I rock with you, you gonna get DeMarcus. You know what I mean?
And that's what we're getting now. This is a beautiful thing about the media landscape, and you see how quickly it changed. Cousins had mentioned when he first came into the league, it was a shut up and dribble league. I wouldn't necessarily say it was that. It's really the technology has evolved to give players a platform, even though they're traveling night in, night out to different cities to play games. Now they have the means and the technology to actually broadcast themselves to their audience and control their narrative.
You and I ain't comfortable, I won't say 2 fucking words to you. Like, and it's gonna remain that way. You know what I mean? So in the beginning, I was a guy that didn't quite talk, and things would be said, and you know, I just kind of let that shit roll off the shoulder, or you gotta ignore it, and act like it don't happen, be the bigger man and shit. Like, Now it's to the point where you gonna hear what the fuck I got to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And you can still disagree, but you still gonna hear what the fuck I got to say. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I ended up in this space, bro.
Again, power of the technology. Guys could broadcast themselves, so now he can't get shunned out. So good thing for Cousins. Now he can control his narrative, and it's great for him that he has made peace of his relationship with the game. But going back to the politics of Cousins being a 10+ year vet, having to get the minimum contract of $3 million or more. But this does have a double-edged sword, as we're seeing the veteran presence on a lot of these teams disappearing. And this shouldn't really be too shocking, because the game has grown internationally. There's more talent pool to draw from. And one of the advantages of younger players, especially undrafted guys or guys you can get out of the second round, is that the contracts are a lot lower. So owners might be drawn to a younger player's potential, while not realizing at the same time they might be overall hurting the growth of certain players that they drafted in the first round by not having that veteran to kind of mold them right away once they enter the league. But Gilbert Arenas had did a sit down with Norris Cole, and they gave great insight to this. You guys check it out, and every once in a while I'll check in.
Like you said, there seems to be a need for solid vets at the end of a lot of NBA benches, but why is it so hard for guys that should be on NBA rosters to actually get on NBA rosters?
Part of it is the way it's collectively bargained with these two-way deals. I think you can have 2 or 3 two-ways, so teams are investing in that. So that's one thing, and another thing is how talent is being evaluated. You got to understand, if you're asking the vet to come in, it's not like the vet trying to come in and be the max player. Mm-hmm. Like a guy like me, if I come to a team, I'm not coming to the team and trying to shoot step back threes and all that. I know exactly what my role is, and I'm gonna be excited to play my role, which is maturity, which you need that on the team in the locker room. So I think the evaluators are looking at these guys can do this, they can do this, you can do that, do that. But when you call them to your team, that's not what you're gonna ask them to do. You need to be looking at the fit you need that guy to play and find the best player, regardless of age. Is he capable? Is he in shape enough to do that role? And if he is, that should be the guy that get called up. You know, it's only 3 guys on the team that's gonna be able to open up their bag unlimitedly. Other than that, you gotta know how to run to the corner space, catch and shoot. If you're a backup point guard or a third-string point guard, organize the offense, ball security, know how to play defense, get everybody, because in the playoffs, especially playoff teams, that plays a big role. It ain't about scoring 15 or 20 points. It's about when you on the court and your team is down by 4 and the starters come back in, are y'all still down by 4? Are y'all down by 10? Or are y'all up by 2? That's what veteran players understand. And we ain't out there trying to get our game off. Yep. We out there trying to fit the team.
Time score management.
Exactly. And I think the league is missing that right now. Two is too young. Obviously, you got a lot of young talent that deserves to be in the league. You know, I ain't never gonna hate on no basketball player, but the end of the bench should be guys that are veterans that can stay in shape, keep the locker room and the practice atmosphere positive, and be a good example for young, talented players. And that's what should be and then guess what? If a guy goes down and get injured, you know a veteran, he ready. He been training, he's been watching film because he practicing and doing stuff with the young guys every day, playing ones, running sprints after games, after practice, so you know he's ready, and he's been in the league for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, so you know the moment not gonna be too much for him because he done it. You ain't gotta guess, he's done it. And I think we've gotten away from that, and we need to get back to more of that.
I remember when I was in that position where they wanted to know, was I mentally capable of adjusting to maybe not playing, me not having to have to prove myself that I could play. Mm-hmm. And I look at the Carmelo Anthony situation when he, Houston, Portland, and it's like him accepting the role of, I'm not the star guy, can I come off the bench? Mm-hmm.
Nah, he did not. And in the curious case for Carmelo Anthony, they wanted him to accept the role of just being that catch and shoot guy. And since his defense was never up to par, he might have to be the second or third guy to come off the bench. That's the part he was not willing to accept. It wasn't about him being better than another guy off the bench. It was about the team fit. It seems like he understood his role more once he got to Portland, and we see him play out that same catch and shoot guy coming off the bench. He played that same role out in LA.
And Stevenson, can you be the guy that can accept not playing? Can
And Melo was struggling with a lot of this during the OKC days, because that's when they first start kind of telling him and just giving him hints. Hey, we need you to come off the bench. They started running less plays for him when he was starting with Westbrook and Paul George. He wasn't getting his number called as often. They were giving him slow hints. They asked him to reconstruct his player option on his contract. These were all the small hints that they needed him to play a different role. He didn't come to OKC to be the second tier or even third tier option.
It's not even about playing, right? It's about an investment, right? Mm-hmm. You're spending all this money on players and you don't have anybody to teach them how to be basketball players outside of the court, right? And that's what it was. I didn't know how to be a basketball player outside of the court, right? So that's where, I got in trouble. Until I had to learn how to be professional and be what, everyone's watching you, right? When you go out, don't drink liquor in front of people,
Go home and
right? To this day, before the show, I can say I don't drink, and no one will have any evidence of it because I came in with a Gatorade bottle full of liquor. But it's a Gatorade bottle.
Right.
Drink Gatorade, drink water, get drunk before you get to the club, right?
Wow, just Gilbert touching base on being a professional outside of the court. With social media and just everyone having the ability to just press record on their phone and broadcast, I'm wondering if the vets even could relate to the younger players of today to tell them how to behave on social media. As we see the incidents with Ja Morant, Zion Williams getting caught up with extracurricular activities on social media. This is a mess. This is a mess, but there are different conundrums, but the vets can kind of at least give them somewhat insight to the mistakes that they made previously. And hopefully the players can actually adjust and kind of relay of how some of that will relate to their current life.
Show people that you're drinking in public. You don't want that image out there. So a veteran had to tell me that. That's what NBA needs to invest in. You're invested in the older guys, right? 14, 15, 13, you're not getting in the game anyway. Those guys can teach these guys, hey, we have a big game today.
Yeah.
We're gonna back it up, right? Hey, we're gonna go out, get a little eat, then we're gonna get back to the room.
Yep.
Right? Don't stay at the strip club very late. Don't, go into the club, ending the club with the lights on. No, we don't do that.
You step in, step out.
No, we don't do that. You go in, spend about an hour, hour and a half, get what you're gonna get out of there.
Right.
Right? Make sure you tell someone that this girl came to your room, you let the front desk know, you let the team security know, boom, boom, boom. So if anything happens.
You got your alias name, don't put your name.
You know what I mean?
Like get your non-disclosures ready at the door so they turn them phones off.
But that's what I said. They teach you how to move, right? They teach you how to be a professional. You're a veteran for a reason. The veteran means you've been in this motherfucker for a long time.
And this is what your rep's supposed to look like if you're trying to be a max player. You want to be a max player, this is what the max players do.
This is what
they don't do the same
None
work that the role players do. They recovery is different.
Yep.
They reps his shoulder, his endurance in his shoulder and elbow gills is different than everybody else's. Because guess what? When all else fails, he got to show up.
Yep.
They showing up to the game, he's a headliner. So young fella, if this is the path you're taking, if we taking 250 makes a day, you need 500 a day. And in the summer, you got to double.
Yep.
Triple that a day.
Then you got to get a massage.
Got a massage afterwards.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, all that. But guess what?
Get your chef.
You only know that.
You need it from a player, not a coach. You don't need it from. It's different when a player is saying it versus when a coach is saying it. It resonates different, and that's why you need vets.
You know what happens though? I think sometimes that the general managers and all these guys, they look at a player that had like problems, right?
Yep.
And then they assume that the player who got in trouble at 21 is the same player at 35.
They haven't grown.
Yep, DeMarcus Cousins right there. Prime example.
Yeah.
Like, well, what is wrong with you? The thought of that with Chris Brown in the All-Star game. You're penalizing a dude when he was he's 30-something with children.
Man.
You're still talking about what he
Not
did
even
when he
the
was
same person. He's changed 3-4 times.
That's what I'm saying. Is like.
See, exactly. So you already see the culture of the league. They're gonna Peter Pan a celebrity R&B singer just for an all-star appearance. You could only imagine what they're gonna do for a player who's not only an asset to the league, but also represents it.
Come on, like the ideal of this is who he still is just eludes me sometimes. And that's what I think the NBA gets stuck with, or just people, period. That these people are still the same and they haven't grown. The only thing that hasn't grown is you, technically, because you're still thinking about a motherfucker that did something 20 years ago. That's the problem.
DeMarcus Cousins. He's upset with the fact that he don't know why they won't give him another chance. And it's because the attitude problems that he had and that's why it's important to tell these young kids to know, like, your perception of you and your reputation will follow you everywhere you go.
Yes.
Whenever they talk about somebody, they're talking about who they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it's like, man, you still on that?
Yeah.
And so you ain't grown.
You ain't grown at all.
And some of these dudes are young decision makers. I don't even think they know some of the, need to do their homework on some of the veteran players. They don't even know some of them. And so, they need to do their homework and stop using just analytics.
I'm glad Norris Cole has said this. Raja Bell has spoke about the Cavaliers using a database where any random personnel could enter information on past players to see what was their attitude issues or what were their flaws. It's almost like players were getting a random review, and the Cavs solely went off of this data, who to make part of their organization. It was weird. And this is some of the clapback that a lot of the analytical crowd gets. Basketball is more than just the numbers. It's about the chemistry. You've seen Daryl Morey when he left Houston. That Houston analytics ball did not end up working out. Not only James Harden was frustrated, but PJ Tucker, Austin Rivers, Trevor Ariza, everybody on that team end up complaining about the style of play, that they were pretty much pigeonholed to being a cog in the fucking wheel. It's almost like the analytical crowd within the NBA front offices have also forgotten to take into consideration personality traits. Do they fit within certain work environments, certain team groups, certain departments?
Like, we talk about Zion, and you look at a guy like Zach Randolph.
Oh, it would have been
right?
vital.
How Zebo could give someone like him an opportunity to, hey, look, I had the same type of body fat problems you had, bro. And I was hungry too. But you know what I did to become an all-star? You know what I did to maintain the 20 and 10? And I did these things.
Yep.
Stayed out of trouble. I did this. When the work called me, I left them on red. I ain't call them back until I was done with my workout. You want to go text them mid-workout? I'm taking a breather. Yeah, baby, I'm gonna be there in a second.
Discipline is the biggest thing when you're in the NBA, man. It's like, it's one of those things where you have all the money in the world and all the time to not get in trouble. That is the problem. I got all the money and the time to not get in trouble. And you're gonna have to really police yourself. So if you don't put like rules in for you to just be great, then you fall to all the elements, right? The last thing you want to be is someone who's addicted to the NBA life. That is the worst thing, right? That's like
the life without the work. Guess what? The life won't last long.
Yeah, like you don't want to be like you want to be a partier, a drinker. They going to the club, to the strip club, spending. You don't want to be all the elements of it.
Now, funny thing with Gilbert Arenas mentioning the NBA life, the new crop of players that will be drafted into the league will have already somewhat be living the NBA life with their NIL deals, and especially with the way the college landscape is going. I mean, right now they're in between court hearings, but it's looking like eventually a lot of these football players and basketball players will eventually be employees. So going forward, you may even have players coming into the league already used to a certain lifestyle, especially with all the media companies that are coming behind these players, the Overtimes, the Ball is Life. All these social media companies have been promoting these guys since the age of 14, 13, hyping them up. They had a following, they had an NIL deal. This is going to be interesting in the next 5 to 6 years.